Hello and welcome everyone in another episode of Researcher Celebrity. Today we have Dr. Sara Werner with us. A brief about Dr. Sara. She has done her bachelor's in chemistry from University of Minnesota and then pursued PhD in synthetic organic chemistry from University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. She joined postdoc position at the Scripps Research Institute in La Jolla, California, and since then she actively did research, administration, and everything. There is a long list which we'll discuss during this recording. And currently, she is Executive Director of Strategic Programs, UC San Diego, in School of Biological Sciences. With this brief introduction, we'll welcome Dr. Sara Werner at the platform and thank you for taking time out.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
So, Sara, we always start our conversation that how and when you decided that you want to become a researcher.
Great question. For me, I think a passion for science started when I was still in elementary school, so probably around 10 or 11 years old. The first sort of real sort of science excitement and exposure for me was when we were learning about the systems of the human body, so circulatory system, muscular system, skeletal system, things like that. And I thought, how amazing that we can know so much about, the systems that make up, a human body. And really that was, for me, the first point at which I knew science was going to be something I wanted to pursue. It really wasn't until I was in my second year of college at the University of Minnesota that I sort of realized what scientific discipline really, I was passionate about. And I had taken a organic chemistry lab course where part of the course was essentially to be given a set of experiments, and we had really the ability to go into the lab and do the experiments and do the work kind of as we wished, based on sort of the open hours of the lab. And so it was really meant to model a real research situation versus sort of a typical lab course. And that's really where my love for chemistry was born, really just understanding the chemical reactions and characterizing what was happening and what I was producing and purifying was really exciting for me.
Mm-hmm. So then from there, you decided that you want to pursue a PhD. That is not one of the very to-go goals for most of the people. But because of this series that we talk about researcher celebrities, most of our researchers has taken that path. So what made you, in the first place that you want to pursue a PhD? And then we will discuss about how that journey went.
Sounds great. That's a great question because I didn't necessarily go into that mindset of I really love chemistry, thinking I am going to pursue an advanced degree. But shortly after that lab experience that I just described, I was invited to join a research lab to do undergraduate research. And really being part of that lab, getting to know the graduate students who were my mentors and who were teaching me how to pursue an independent research project really made me realize that was what I wanted to do, that I wanted to really be an expert in synthetic organic chemistry. And I really wanted to kind of prolong my exposure in kind of an educational way as long as possible. Really, it sounds sort of strange, but really for me, I was really excited about essentially doing what these graduate students were doing and working, just immersing myself in a research project.
Mm-hmm. So then once you have committed that, okay, now you're pursuing PhD, you are a graduate student, how that life was, and then we will move to the next level. But just take this time to describe the challenges and how did you overcome those?
Sure. Well, I would say the first challenge for me was moving further away from my family. And so that was something that I was first really excited about and then became a bit anxious about. And so it took me a few months to really, kind of have this self-confidence, personal discussions with myself of, I'm here at graduate school and so are all these other people and we're all sort of feeling these same things. So that was a big part of my first probably 6 months. But I think that first year of graduate school was a huge challenge because everything is new. Sort of, the new classes, the new sort of level of coursework, doing teaching assistantships, definitely a challenge that was new. And what really helped me through was to reach out to my peers and to the faculty, the professors who, are all, experiencing this with me. And so I really found people that were also first-year graduate students. Some of them were older, so they had more of a mentorship role for me, and really just kind of moved through with that sort of peer support and mentor support. And reaching out to faculty made me realize that the faculty ultimately want all of the graduate students to be successful. And so we really, it was a nice cohort. Everybody worked together really well. And once we sort of got to that point where it's, we're all sort of in this together, that was a huge support system and really, a study group and support as we were choosing labs, which is another huge challenge at the end of my first year of graduate school.
Absolutely. So we will talk about a little bit in the support systems because graduate school is a long journey and often throws all those failed experiments, which is no exception to any stream you go. There are a lot of them. So what you will suggest to the audience, to the researchers who are watching this conversation, that what are the ways they can cope up with that and then move ahead? As you said, that all the faculties there want to see everyone as successful graduate students, mentors and peers, everyone. Then still what has been observed, and this is in United States, in India, where people spend 3 to 5 years in a lab and either they drop out or they don't complete their PhD. In very sad and rare cases, they commit suicide, which is one of the things which Empowering Science Foundation is trying to work on, that how we can help these researchers who are under stress and either thinking of quitting PhD or anything. Yeah.
It's a really great question. And I think one of the things that really helped me was the reminder that for me, nobody was telling me that I had to do this. This was all coming from within. This was something that I was really passionate about. And I always knew that if I got to a point where I had, to make a decision about what was right for me, it was in my power to make that decision. And really, that helped me kind of through each and every day, because I knew that what I wanted was ultimately to finish with my PhD. And so reminding myself every day that that was in my control was huge for me. The support systems were critical. I mean, honestly, I look back at my time as a graduate student and I remember that it was stressful. There was pressure. There was so much new information that I was learning and trying to retain. And having, other people who were in this exact same position with me, that I could lean on and they could lean on me, I think was really important. And so for me, that first step of reaching out and saying, hey, you know what, I actually don't know how to do this. can you show me, can you help me, was huge, because then it sort of opens up this this path where it becomes this sort of two-way support system, because now it's like, oh, great, I didn't know that either. So let's work on this together. And so, you know, I really honestly think that what really helped me through the hardest moments was just reaching out and asking for help, asking for advice, or even just saying, I just need to sort of tell you what's happening and how I'm feeling. And, you know, ultimately it led to this really close group of peers that were both really great friends, really great colleagues, and really great support systems. And some of them were in my research lab and some of them were outside of my research lab. So we had, you know, some shared experiences and some different experiences that we could talk about. I think that's something I dealt with, and I didn't have a word for it then, but I hear a lot about it now, is this imposter syndrome, where you go in every day and you think, I do not belong here. All of these people here are so much smarter than me. They know so much more than me. They have their lives figured out, and I'm just sort of, you know, off in the background, you know, waving my arms. I wish I would have known, you know, more about that there is a word for this, and we are all dealing with it. We still deal with it every day, right? So I think that's something that everyone just needs to remember, is that if you're feeling something, guaranteed the people around you are feeling it too. And just talking about it, whether it's to your peers, whether it's to a faculty member, it is just really, really critical.
Absolutely. And this is something which we always encourage our researchers all around the world, that whatever you are feeling, you are not the first one. That is for sure. People have felt it. They have overcome all those challenges. And that's why whenever you see a PhD student, or like, you know, after they have accomplished it, now we say that, okay, if you survived PhD, you can survive anything, because it trains you for the rest of your life. So now, moving from the PhD, you joined Scripps Research Institute in La Jolla for your postdoc. That switch, what was the things you made a note of when you were looking for the postdoc opportunities?
I really looked at the type of science that I was currently involved in and how I wanted to expand into just a totally different area. So I was really focused in graduate school on carbohydrate synthesis and physical properties of carbohydrates. So I really wanted to branch beyond that. It's, you know, it's very specific, you know, it's a very specialized area of synthetic organic chemistry. So I really wanted to branch beyond that. And so for me, it was really identifying, that was kind of the first point where I thought, okay, I need to start thinking about what I want to do when I, you know, move on to the real world. Because in a way, I felt like I was sort of prolonging that, you know, first job. And so it was really the first time that I thought, what is it that I want to do? And what I thought I wanted to do at the time, well, what I did want to do at the time was go and work in a pharmaceutical company or a biotech company, doing you know, lead optimization in medicinal chemistry. And so having that knowledge at that time really led me to the lab where I did my research with Jeffrey Kelly at the Scripps Research Institute, because he had some research projects that were very traditional medicinal chemistry, with the added bonus that his lab was made up of biologists, biochemists, biophysicists, and organic chemists. And this was a real opportunity for me to learn beyond just the you know, the organic chemistry skills I had, you know, focused on in graduate school, to really branch out and understand some of these other things that are happening when you are designing you know, the drug candidates and testing drug candidates. And so to me, that was really exciting, to be a part of some of these other disciplines that I really knew nothing about other than what I learned in it.
Absolutely. And this is something which we always tell all the PhD students who are nearing their completion, that they should always look for the type of research they enjoy. Absolutely. But they should always consider that what expansion in their skill set they can do, because you are already almost an expert in the field which you studied during your PhD. But now it is the time to get more skill set, spread, like branch out more, so that you can be utilizing all the knowledge for betterment of human society. Then the next level, you worked for almost more than almost a decade at Synomics, where you enjoyed all the different roles, starting from scientist and then becoming associate director of programs and alliance management. So this move of a researcher from bench chemist to the management, how did that move happen, and what were the situations which you can guide, because some of the researchers consider it seriously, so what path you already walked on that, what you can guide them?
Sure. So I would say if I sort of rewind a little bit back to making that decision to get a PhD, one of the things that went into that decision was, when I do eventually get out into the workforce, how is that going to open up my opportunities? And so one of the things I thought was, right now I really enjoy bench science, but I'm not sure that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so to me, getting a PhD and spending that time really immersed at the bench was one pathway to eventually lead me away from the bench and to open up doors for me. And so that was one of the things I considered. So now fast forward to my time at Synomics, I absolutely am so grateful for all of the time at that company. I started, it was a small company. I got to see the company grow. I got to be a part of the growth of that company. And it was, for me, the absolute best experience. I had amazing mentorship and leadership at that company that taught me, the skills around medicinal chemistry and lead optimization, which was, really fantastic. And I would say after about 10 years, moving from scientist at the bench, moving up to having more responsibility, eventually having the opportunity to lead projects and to lead teams, really opened my eyes to the fact that what I loved the most about my my time at Synomics and the jobs I had done was the interactions with people in different disciplines. So having conversations with people who had expertise in areas that I did not, and being able to share our different expertise to really solve a problem together. And that to me was the best part of what I was doing. And while I was at Synomics, I really got to know our project management leadership really well. It was a small company, and we worked closely together. And she really, the director of that department really, she served as a mentor for me, and I became really interested in what she was doing and how she got to where she was. We had very different backgrounds, and I started really educating myself on project management techniques. We had opportunities to take courses and boot camps through Synomics, which was really fantastic. They were so proactive about career development, which was fantastic. And eventually, a position opened up within the company for the associate director of program and alliance management, and I decided to go for it. And that really led me into just a whole new career path, which was exciting and hard, but ultimately very rewarding.
So when people talk about administrators, who can actually understand science also, as you've been served as a researcher and then now in more of the administration role you are. So what are the things you say that if you would not have done a PhD, you might have not, you know, what were the things which you would have lacked?
That is a great question. And I truly feel that having a PhD and having the perspective of what it was like to work in sort of a research intensive environment with faculty who were passionate about their research and who were, really every day thinking about how am I going to secure funding to make sure that this research can continue, really allows me to come into my job every day with the perspective, sort of with the research perspective in mind, as I am, doing my administrative job. And I think that makes me, an asset to both the researchers and the scientists, as well as to my administrative leadership team, who, are looking to me to make connections and help them understand, what researchers need.
Absolutely. So 2 points here. The first one is people in general, like for general audience, researchers are this distinct species which lacks communication. Like at least for them, we cannot communicate. So as a administrator and researcher, what you can suggest the researchers that how they should develop these skills, or why it is difficult for in general audience to talk to researchers in general?
Great question. So one thing I would say is there are, depending on the audience and where the researchers reside and what their programs look like or what their career pathways look like. I have taken several communications workshops throughout my career. And I think that's one thing, is to recognize that there are communication styles that you can really target the way you communicate to different audiences. And there are workshops and classes and at educational institutions, oftentimes there are resources available to really help individuals refine those skills. And I think that is really critical. The other thing that I spend a lot of time thinking about are, others' perspectives. So, understanding that, as, the staff and administration that I work with, they have a very specific goal, and their goal is different than the, the goals of the researchers on a day-to-day basis. And so really coming at the communication, understanding the perspectives and the end of the day goal for those two very different, like subsets of, is important, and something that I spend a lot of time thinking about. And having a PhD helps me understand both of those perspectives, as well as, coming up in the administrative, sort of job ladder as well. But I really think that a bit of it is just putting yourself out there and making that first connection, and having that first conversation. Because what I think the audience will realize is that, we're all there and probably nervous to talk to administrators and staff, and students and, and researchers who are sort of boots on the ground in the lab, or maybe they don't quite know how to connect either. And so somebody has to make that first move. And so, I think just sort of putting yourself out there and beginning the line of communication is another great strategy. But it's hard, but once you do it, I think you realize that there are a lot of advantages to making those connections.
Absolutely. This is something which we always say, that going to national and international meetings, it is easy to discuss science with all the scientists. What is tough is to tell your science to a person who has nothing to do with science. But what we always say that the best researcher is if you can if you can make understand a person who's in economics, not your experiments, but your results and how they can impact the economics of it. So if you can do this, you can do anything and everything. And again, this is one of the things which we always say that researchers is not what we say that with PhDs, with experiment scientists, researcher is anyone and everyone who's thinking how to make things better, what can be done, how things can be improved. So you have contributed to different roles as a researcher. Now, based on your experience, like starting from bench to like with this vision. So you had a vision that, okay, I need PhD to do more of than administration job. Okay. Now people face some challenges in research, some challenges in administration. Based on your experience, what you can suggest that a researcher who's planning to do administration in a longer run, how they should prepare themselves well in advance so that they can skip some of the challenges.
Great question. If I had to sort of look back and think about, some of the things that I could have done differently had I, been, sort of predicted this path. One thing I think is mentorship. Identify somebody who is either has skill sets that you wish to have, or is in a position that you would love to have someday, and reach out. I really truly believe that mentorship is it's a two-way interaction, because the mentor learns from the mentee and vice versa. And so really connecting with individuals who know the things or do the things that you aspire to do one day is really huge, and something that I did, but I didn't really appreciate the power until much later. And so I wish that I would have really been more tuned in to, how impactful that was going to be in the future. And then I think just, something that I did when I was in the middle of that transition is I would open up kind of, websites or, course catalogs and really look at what are the types of skills that I can get trained in that would help me. And so that helped me identify some of these workshops that would be of interest, so career development opportunities. Like I said, at the company where I was, there were a lot of opportunities, and they were encouraged. The same is true for my position now. But back when I was making the transition, those workshops in project management, in change management, were really critical in helping me understand what it was that this job or this career path even meant. So, it's a bit of work, but really seeking out the people and the content, and sort of understanding how you can educate yourself before you are in the positions.
Absolutely. And this is something which is very important, especially when the path is changing so much that you are no more involved in research. And now only you have to do is talk to people, make them understand their problems, provide them with the solutions which you are not prepared for. So this is something which we, at this in these conversations with our researchers all over worldwide, we always talk about that it is so important that an administration has to understand that the research can be so trivial or so advanced that you might or might not be able to connect. And that's where we need researchers like you who can bridge this perfection. And then one of the things which is now coming up, as you mentioned about project management, that they really in these roles want a researcher who can understand from both the ways and then can bridge, help them, the administration, as well as the researchers to achieve the common goal. So now the second question, like now the question for you is, you have enjoyed research, you are enjoying administration. Which one you love the most?
Well, I don't know if I can really answer that, but I would say what I love the most are the people. I absolutely love working with researchers. I will always be a scientist, regardless of what my job title is. I am a scientist at heart, first and foremost. And so when I sit in an office with a researcher, with a professor or somebody in industry, and they are, enthusiastically teaching me about the work they do, that is absolutely my happy place. I love it. And so what I get to do in my role as in administration is to help those researchers see those research projects through, that by helping them identify funding mechanisms, by helping create the spaces where they can do some of these experiments, connecting them with partners within and outside of our organization. And so that's a hard question for me to answer, but I can say that everything is, for me, driven by the science.
Absolutely. No, I think you answered it to the perfection, that you at heart is a scientist and always will be. And this is something which also we say, that once a researcher, always a researcher. There is no looking back. If you are not on desk, doesn't mean that you are not doing research. What you are doing is the research. Absolutely. So we absolutely agree with that part. Now, taking to the next stage, about a little bit about mentoring, because you mentioned it about, and when a person is seeking for a mentor, they are aware of their ideas, that what they want to be trained in. From a mentor perspective, what are the things which they seek in mentees, or they should?
That's a great question. I would say inquiry, passion, interest, engagement, things, things like that. But I honestly think that somebody who even just reaches out and says, what you're doing is interesting to me and I want to learn more, that alone is huge, because it's hard. We talked about it earlier. It's hard to make that first connection. It's hard to to start the conversation, particularly if it's somebody that you met at a research conference, and maybe it's not somebody that you have a connection with or a relationship with in any other way. Just making that first connection speaks volumes. So advice to a mentee is just make the first connection, because that speaks volumes to a potential mentor. And a mentor can be as sort of formal or as informal as you like. I mean, for me, my first mentor became this great friend, and we connected because we worked together and we were on projects together, and it just grew into this really sort of beautiful mentorship / friendship. But then there were also faculty that I would absolutely, outside of my specific sort of research PI in graduate school, that I would consider mentors. I had a faculty member help me through all of those really difficult milestones in graduate school, the qualifying exams, all of these things, just by being, he was not on my committee, but he was there to sort of help me kind of talk me through some of these things from a perspective that was a little bit different than my research mentor. And so I think just
making that
yourself
first
out
move.
there.
Yes,
Yeah,
making that first move is very important. Yes, and this is something which we always encourage to all the researchers, that now with this technology, you can reach out to anyone all around the globe, and you might get your response probably in just one mail. And if not, perseverance is the key for any researcher. So if you really want to talk to a person, or get some advice, you might have to write multiple emails, which is because with the status which people get their emails is so, and depends on the volume of the according to their designation. So if somebody now wants Sarah Warner to write and connect, they can always write to her. She is very helpful. And at the end of these conversation, we always say that if our researcher, whosoever all around the world, want any either mentorship or some advice from you, they can write to you. Or if they want Empowering Science Foundation to help them have these conversations with our researcher celebrities, they can write to us always. We are there, happy to help and always support all those passionate researchers who are having tough time. And we always say this, that you are not alone. We all are there to support you. Sarah, with this, we have a couple of more minutes for the word of wisdom. At the end of this series conversation, we always say that what are your word of wisdom which you will suggest to all the researchers?
That's a lot of pressure. My words of wisdom, I think, are to take the time to kind of sit with yourself and think about what makes you fulfilled, what makes you happy, what you love when it comes to the work you do, and use that as a sort of a launch pad for how can you turn that into a career path. And then, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there, and don't be afraid to learn new things, to really if your hopeful career pathway involves skills that you don't have, don't be afraid to acquire those skills, and think about creative ways in which you can acquire those skills.
Absolutely. And this is something which I believe that every researcher slash in general, every person should always think about, that if you don't know something today, that doesn't mean that tomorrow you will be the same. And this is what life is about: learning new things, skill set, talking to people who can understand your situation and can give you solutions. Sometimes what has often in case of researchers, what has been observed, that all they need is just a person to talk, and sometimes just by telling, they feel that the pressure is gone, and now they are rejuvenated and again motivated and passionate about their research, and they do wonders again going back there. Burnout are the things which we always say that they are for real. And as Dr. Sarah just mentioned, that sit with yourself, think where are the things which are going wrong, is this the path you want to walk? And if it is, mostly if it is self driven, because you have decided that you want to do this, you want to walk on this path, then it always remains there. Don't take pressure of anyone from anything, and stay motivated. You are there, we all are here to help you. Stay motivated. With this, we'll say thank you, Dr. Sarah, for sharing the journey and motivating the young researchers who want to move from bench to the administration side. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here.